Hey guys, good day. I wanted to talk about a few prophetic words from a guy named Maurice Sklar. He's a Messianic Jew. He was born to a Russian Jewish family in New Orleans a while back. Anyway, he's put forth a few prophetic words about the death of Billy Graham that I want to just talk about here shortly and show you some of the interesting information that's spoken about in both of these prophetic words. The first one here I want to talk about is December 1st, 2011, and then he had a second word that he came out the other day on February 23rd, 2018. But this first one has information in it. When you read it, it doesn't appear to have come to fruition, so none of this seems like if it's any of it has been fulfilled. So it starts off talking about the fact that the American dollar is going to drop another 30% more than it did in 2008. And after this drop, there's going to be looting and rioting and terrorism in our land, the United States. He says that as the system does drop, as the financial system does drop, he says there's going to be a great revival that's going to come across this country. And the holy apostles and prophets in this present hour, these guys will be doing all sorts of supernatural miracles and healings and things like that. But what he gets into that I think is pretty incredible is he describes in this paragraph right here, he describes Psalm 83. Let's go ahead and read it. He says, "There is coming an all-out war in the Middle East as the neighboring Arab nations will come against Israel." And if you've studied Psalm 83, and we'll look at it here in a second, Psalm 83 describes a battle that's going to occur with the neighboring nations. Now, Ezekiel 38 is not with the neighboring nations, and we'll look at that also. So he says it's going to start with a sudden missile attack from the north, from Hezbollah, Lebanon, and Syria, and other Arab nations are going to join in. Israel will be hit from all sides. This obviously hasn't happened yet. Israel will be hit from all sides. There will be destruction in the settlements. Cities in the north will get it. Tel Aviv and some parts of Jerusalem. He says this is the part that is interesting. Israel will respond with great force and limited nuclear weapons. So they're going to set off nukes, which hasn't happened since 1945 when we did it. So it'll be the first time that nukes will be used. And it will release a devastation upon the neighboring countries, particularly Lebanon and Damascus. Now we know that Damascus becomes a heap of ruins from Isaiah 17. It'll be completely destroyed, is what he says, and the rest of Syria, as well as military strikes in Iran, Gaza, and even the northern Egypt and Sinai region. So if we go to Psalm 83, I have a diagram here. This is the Psalm 83 Confederates. These are the people that are coming against Israel. And you can see these are the terms that are used in the Psalm itself, written 2,500 years ago or 3,000 years ago by King David. I think it was King David who wrote this one. But he basically mentions Hezbollah and Lebanon, the Arabs, Hezbollah and the southern Lebanon, the Syrians and northern Iraqis. That's who these people are. And you can see that obviously Israel is real tight in here, and all these combatants are right next to Israel. And obviously, according to Maurice's word, Israel responds in kind right to its neighbors to protect itself. Now, if anybody wants to talk about Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Ezekiel 38 is this. And you can see here, this is Israel here in the center. Okay, little tiny Israel, it sides of New Jersey. Psalm 83 is Put, Cush, Persia, Magog, Rosh, Turkey. These countries are all farther out. So this must come after the Psalm 83 event. And what's often been talked about is the Psalm 83 is going to allow Israel to expand her boundaries, because they're going to attack these nations that are right next to it. So it makes a lot of sense that they will expand their boundaries. Okay, so let's go back to the word. Okay, so like I said, this was written December 1st, 2011. It says the resulting shaking in the West, that would be the U.S. and Western Europe, will then release a tremendous movement of the Jews making Aliyah, that's a pilgrimage back to Israel. There will no longer be security or stability that has been up to now in America and Europe. Israel will emerge victorious from this war, but they will still be hurt. However, the devastation on the inflicted upon those attackers will be 100 times worse. The spoils of this war will include much territory and will force the West to recognize the holy God of Israel. So this prophetic word is admitting that there will be much more territory that Israel will gain. It will emerge as the only stable nation in that region. Millions upon millions of Arabs will be killed. And look what he says here, out of the blue, back in December. This word has been out for years now. This is not anything that just got created the other day. He says, I am taking Billy Graham home to heaven soon. When you see this, know that my time of grace for the Gentiles is coming to a close. Okay, so let's take this word and let's go to a word from Byron, Seale, that came out on the 14th of February, just the other day, before Billy Graham passed away. Look what he says here. My son, judgments that my watchmen and true prophets speak now are in progress. All eyes watch Israel, for that is my timepiece. Soon Israel will expand her boundaries. That lines up with what Maurice was talking about. The world is not ready. The world is now ready for war. The red horse is now stirred up, and evil men to be filled with lust and jealousy. My people Israel now will be moved to defend themselves, and all the world will gasp at the end of the result. They're going to gasp because Israel is going to use nukes. Israel will be the most hated of all nations, and America will condemn harshly with words. So America, after this war, I guess Trump, I don't know, America is going to condemn Israel for using the nukes, obviously, but Israel will be just defending themselves. Then look what it says here. America, with all her pride and with all her confidence, will attack North Korea after the Olympic Games. The victory will not only infill the nation and the king, that's Trump here, with more pride. My son, pride goeth before the fall, and this nation, that's the USA, has great pride and will have a great fall. Prepare your houses, for great destruction is upon you. That's for the USA. Okay. All right. Then Maurice came out with another word on the 23rd. That was Friday. And this mentions the passing of Billy Graham. He talks about, I'm not going to, you guys can download and read this, but let me just jump to the chase here. He says, O earth, 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 you have tasted my goodness and my grace through the ministry of Billy Graham and many others for the last 100 years. But I am holy, and I am a consuming fire, and I must judge. I must bring an end to the tyranny of the satanic hatred and destruction. Many false prophets and teachings proclaim that the fear of the Lord and the holiness of the consecration are no longer necessary. This is the prosperity gospel, and the idea that the God of the Old Testament is not what he used to be. That somehow the God of the New Testament is a newer God full of grace that will never judge. Well, he is. God will judge, but he also will exert his mercy and grace, but he must judge first on the wicked. I've told you over and over through my true prophets that when I take Billy Graham home, it will be a signal of the end of the church age of grace to all the nations. He says, I can wait no longer. As I let Methuselah live so long, so I stretched out Billy Graham's life as long as I did. The time of reckoning is here. I'm coming for my bride to take her home. I am coming to completely restore Israel and the Jewish people to their land and to their Messiah. So let's look at what he says. He has compared Billy Graham's life to Methuselah. Now, Billy Graham lived to be 99 plus. He was almost 100. He was in his 99th year. Methuselah lived to be 969. If you take away the 6, Methuselah was 99. So there's a comparison there. So what happened after Methuselah died? Let's go to the Bible and look. Here's the genealogies. Sorry, guys. Here are the genealogies. And here's the life. You can go to Genesis 5 and you can figure this out with a simple calculator and a spreadsheet. But when Methuselah died, in the year after Adam of 1656, and by the way, I guess your modern churches don't ever read Genesis 5 because, it shows that people lived more than 500, 600, 700 years, and that's kind of strange to think, but that's what the word says. But the flood came in 1656. after Adam. And Methuselah, according to the genealogies, you can count this up, he died right before the flood. And we know that the name Methuselah means, some people say that his name means his death shall bring, or when he dies, it is sent. So what came when he died? The judgment at the time of Noah. So when Methuselah died, his name literally means when he dies, it shall come, or judgment shall come, it shall come. Right when he died, the flood came. And Enoch gave him that name. You can see that Enoch was right here. I'm sorry, guys. Enoch was right here. Now, Enoch was only on the earth for 365 years, and God took him. He was raptured. Okay. Back to the word. So the bottom line, don't want to go over here. So if you go to Jasher, first of all, back in the Bible, the canonical Bible, we don't know, exactly when he died. He died that year, and then the flood came. But if you read Jasher, it says this. This is in chapter 6. It says, and at that time Methuselah, the son of Enoch, died. And at that time, assuming the same time that he died, after the death of Methuselah, the Lord said, go thou and your household into the ark, and I will gather all the animals and bring them into the ark. So that was the 10th day of the 2nd month that Noah went into the ark. So it appears from Jasher that Methuselah died on the 10th day of the 2nd month. And 7 days later, the flood came. At the end of the 7 days, in the 600th year of Noah, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. So it appears that 1 week, 7 days after Methuselah died, according to the book of Jasher, the judgment came. So the question is, is it possible that, Billy Graham passed away on February 21st? 7 days later, could the judge king, could God use that same pattern here? I don't know. Could be, maybe not. Okay, I want to just jump here with two other words that Byron Seale had about the death of Billy Graham. So I'm sorry, guys. So on February 21st, the day that Billy Graham did pass away, later in that evening, Byron got a word from the Lord. He said, my son, within the next few days, this was on Wednesday of last week, a series of events that will draw this nation into war. And then he writes, many people will be set free, and great rejoicing will take place as I've answered my people's prayers. Now, I heard from Byron, and he said this thought right here was really concerning the folks in North Korea. That somehow, like we read in that other word, the U.S. is going to go to war with North Korea. And I guess there will be some good aspects that come from that war for those who live in North Korea. And then he says, my remnant are strong in my word, and will lead many lost and fragile back to me. My body, that would be the church, will send the ones with the truth, and a mighty revival will sweep the land. So after the revival, then I will gather my people to me. And then he says, did I not say that when I call my last general home, the end will come quickly? So I'll just jump to this other word that came out just the other day. Okay, so yesterday, Byron had another word. He says, my son, write these words as I speak to you, for they are for my body. Many chaotic things are days away. Days. Not weeks, months, days. And look what he says, here's my son. The plans for the North Korean war have now been finalized and approved by the king. That would be Trump. After my servant's body is placed in the ground, the war can start. War will erupt in Israel during this same time frame, as the enemies of Israel will be opposed to the embassy move. This will be a distraction to take the eyes off the world of the true threat of Russia, Iran, Turkey. The bear, that's Russia, will be on the prowl because the star, that's Israel, and the eagle, that's the USA, will appear to be strong after the victorious battles. Beware the bear, for he is strong and will surprise everyone. So I'll have these words up and you guys can download them and read them. But when you go back to Maurice Sklar's word, I'm sorry, guys. This seems pretty eminent between Maurice and Byron's two words. This is days away. And look what it says here. It says, the time of reckoning is here. This is Maurice's word the other day. My bride to take her home. I am coming to completely restore Israel and the Jewish people in their land. So if you jump over to the calendar, and I'm not setting dates. I do not know the day or the hour at all. Right now we are 225. We're on the 10th day of Adar. Okay. Coming this week is a festival. It's a remembrance. It's called Purim. And I would suggest you guys read up on Purim and learn about what happened. But in the story of Purim, and I'll leave a link for it right here. You guys can read about this, the basic story of Purim. In this story is where the Jews, the southern tribe of Judah, were living in Persia at the time. They were scattered because of the what happened with Babylon in the 70 years dispersion in Babylon. And during that time they were there. They were sort of second-class citizens, but there was a plot that was hatched by a guy named Haman, and he wanted to kill all the Jews. And he actually got the king, Artaxerxes, to approve a plan to kill all the Jews. And the 13th of Adar was that day that they hatched a plan that they were going to destroy and kill every Jew in their nation and the surrounding areas. But the queen, Esther, who had already married the king, she went to him and begged him on that day, the 13th of Adar, to have this plan stopped. And the king agreed, but he could not stop the plan, because once a decree of destruction was made, he couldn't turn it around. But what he did was he allowed the Jews to turn around and fight and kill their enemies the next day, and that's what happened. So the Jews were attacked on the 13th, and then on the 14th and the 15th of Adar, they responded and they wiped out their enemy. So this time of Purim sort of sounds like Psalm 83, if you think about it. So with that, guys, I'll let you go. Have a good day, and God bless you.